everybody, Tim Drodge here, View from the South Stands, coming to you on Wednesday after Toronto FC's 4-2 aggregate victory over two legs in qualifying for the CONCACAF Champions League away last night, of course, versus Real Esteli. They win 2-1 at home, they win 2-1 away, and now they're in to the group stages of the Champions League for the second year running. Congratulations to Toronto FC. I'm going to get to the game and my thoughts on it in just a moment. Before I do, though, I want to throw a bit of a dart towards the direction of Rogers Sportsnet that I think really failed last night. I tuned in at 10 o'clock to watch the game from Nicaragua, which I'll give them credit. They decided to broadcast on Sportsnet 1. That's something, I suppose, to give them some credit for. But yet the baseball game was still on, and it was rain delayed, and they had to finish that, and I understand it. However, they have four other channels. Two of those channels were playing their nightly sportscast called Connected. One of those channels could have played the game live. I think it was a real dropped ball / epic fail, as I called it on Twitter last night, that saw Sportsnet put the game on a 45-minute delay due to the baseball game. I ended up having to take the Pirates' choice and watch the game on an internet feed, which is not the ideal situation, and I'm not the only one that did that. I'm sure thousands were doing exactly the same thing last night. I really pity my friends that were at the pub last night that had no choice but to wait the 45 minutes for the game to be broadcast on the tape delay. But again, hopefully they'll learn from this and not do such a thing in the future when they definitely have 5 channels and options in front of them to actually broadcast the game live rather than on a delay. But enough about that. The game itself, I'm sure most of you watching this probably watched the game, so I'm not going to reiterate too many of the more obvious points. What I will say is this: I have really 4 things to say about the game. One of them is kudos to Aaron Vinter, who not only made the decision to actually play a somewhat weakened lineup rather than TFC's best 11 in these 2 critical games, but he actually, I'm assuming, took a look at what the level of the opposition was and realized that he had an opportunity to do some squad rotation, rest some key players for the MLS season, and still get the result that he was looking for, and it worked for him, and I'm going to give him absolute kudos on that. I'm also going to give him kudos for going back to Milos Kosic last night. A lot of fans were wondering if Stefan Frei was going to play after the goal that Milos gave away in the first leg of the series, of course, that, with all due respect, that howler that saw Real Esteli get an away goal and a lifeline going into last night's game. He went back to Milos. Milos had a good, solid game last night. He gave up a goal on a penalty. Couldn't really be blamed for that. But the other, the Real Esteli, in any other opportunity they had, Milos was very, very strong, very commanding in his box. And I think putting him back in speaks to Aaron's perhaps growing man management skills. Remember, folks, he's a brand new coach. He's never coached, head coached at a high level before. He's never been a manager before. He's been assistant. He's, of course, been in a lot of, he's been at Ajax for a long time, but he's never been the guy to actually choose who's on and who's off. He's doing that now, of course, in Toronto, and I think it was a very astute move to put Milos in last night and reestablish his individual confidence. And, of course, you get the added bonus of giving Stefan Frei a well-deserved rest as well. Now, the 3 players that I really want to call attention to are the following. In no particular order, I want to start with João Plata, who I think it's fair to say overall has been Toronto's best player over the last maybe 4 to 5 weeks. His work rate, his attitude, his enthusiasm, his playmaking, his goal scoring have all been exemplary. And the fact that he was the last pick of the MLS draft and the fact that he's the smallest player in all of MLS just sometimes simply astounds me. The kid is doing so well, and it's pretty obvious after looking at a result like last night and what he did towards securing the result last night, that it's no wonder he's become a fan favorite very, very quickly in Toronto. Ryan Johnson, the recent acquisition from San Jose for Jacob Peterson, scored 2 goals. 2 great goals. One of them Well, one great goal and one he needed to score, and he did score, perhaps is really the way to say it. The first goal, as you probably all are aware, is about a 20-yard screamer that he scored late in the first half to tie the game after the penalty, give TFC an opportunity to actually win the tie, and that was all they needed to do so. Then in the second half, the Real Esteli goalie made a pass, an errant pass out of his box right to Johnson's feet, and lo and behold, he pops it into the left side of the net. That's the 4-2 on aggregate, and that's the ball game, so to speak. And it's good to see that not only he's scoring goals, but his work rate is excellent as well. He's running hard. He looks like a very useful player up top, out wide for TFC moving into the second half of the season. The third player that I'd like to mention very quickly is, of course, Torsten Frings, who was brought in, and this is how Mariner and Winter sold the signing of Torsten Frings. They brought Torsten Frings in to be an on-field leader more than anything else. And with Maicon Santos, our second captain of the year, being traded away yesterday to Dallas for Eric Avila, and I'll have more about that on the blog later this week. He wore the armband Tuesday night in Nicaragua, and I think you're going to have to pry it from his cold dead hands as we go forward from here. He makes everybody around him better. It's really that simple. And I think as he becomes more comfortable with his teammates, his level of influence over the game is going to increase from the even high level that it's been at over the last few games as well. The only other thing I want to talk about as far as the game goes is the overcoming of adversity. If you read my post that I wrote pregame yesterday, I talked about the old cliche about you never know a guy until you're in a foxhole with him and the bullets start whizzing by your head. The old, you have to be thrown through the crucible of stress and combat to really understand and know the brother next to you. Well, I know I'm pushing the analogy a little bit, but that was some pretty tough circumstances that Toronto FC has been over in the last week. Between the road trip to Portland, then to Nicaragua, then back to Toronto, whether it be the 5 games in 15 days, whether it be the 10 new acquisitions over the last 2 weeks, whether it be the 7 players leaving, whether it be the team captain for the second time in the season being traded, whether it be a lot of uncertainty, I'm sure, in the locker room when you see players coming and going, whether it be the distances they had to travel to Nicaragua, whether it be the tired legs, whether it be the horrible pitch that they played on, whether it be the, I suppose, decent by Central American standards, but probably poor by North American standards officiating from the Honduran referee Raul Castro last night that they had to endure, whether it be the away goal error that they had to overcome. Every single one of those obstacles that was put in front of TFC, they checked them off the list, they overcame them, and I think it's fair to say that they're flying back into Toronto today. Oh, by the way, they've already arrived back in Toronto. They flew overnight on charter from Managua to Toronto. They got in at like 10 a.m. Eastern today. But I think with all of those adversities checked off that list, I think it's fair to say that the club is a stronger team now than when they left for Portland last week. And that can only, for the optimist in me, only hold good things for the future as we move into the second half of the season and head into the group stages of the Champions League. Now, the 2 last things I want to talk about are sort of unrelated. I'll get to the Champions League one first, and that's about ticketing. If you remember, I was quite critical of TFC over the pricing structure that they came up with for the first leg of the Champions League tickets against Real Esteli. I paid $17 for my supporters and seat. I thought that was a good value. I think charging $50, $60, $70, $80, up to $88, I think it was, for a club seat was frankly excessive. And you reap what you sow. That's why I think there was less than 9,000 fans in the stadium versus Real Esteli last week in Toronto, and why I hope that Toronto FC learns its lesson a little bit and is perhaps a little more, not so much on the bottom end. I think they got that right. If they charge me a cheaper price, that's cool. But I think 17 is a good value for what I paid per game going forward. But I think charging $70, $80, $90 a seat. Maybe asking people to pay $250, $260, maybe even $270 for 3 seats for these upcoming 3 Champions League games, I think is a little bit excessive, and I think you're going to see even smaller crowds going forward. So I think it's important right now to introduce the team, this new team, which is essentially what it is, to the city, and I think you and to new customers, and to try to broaden the base. I think you do that by being a little more progressive on the pricing. And I await to hear from TFC exactly what that is going to look like over the next few days, because they have a lot of tickets to sell, and I'm sure we'll be hearing over the next day or two, before the end of the week for sure, how they're going to proceed on that, and I'll definitely keep you posted on what I hear about that as well. The only other thing I want to talk about right now is the DC United game. TFC, of course, is back in Toronto now. They got the day off today. They got the day off tomorrow. They fly to DC on Friday. They train Friday in DC late. And then they play, of course, DC United and Dwayne De Rosario at RFK Stadium on Saturday night. And I'll have a video blog up on Sunday after, of course, Saturday night's match. What I'm wondering, and I hope that you guys and girls watching this will actually comment below in the comment section. I'd really love to hear what you think. I'm wondering this. I'm wondering if Dwayne De Rosario scores a goal. I hope he doesn't, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does. He's a very good player, and he's been on a tear lately. He was MLS Player of the Week last week, for example. If he scores a goal against TFC, is he going to do his little shake and bake? I'm just wondering. I'm just wondering if, even after all of the animosity, all of the controversy during his time here, I'm wondering how he still feels about this club that he was captain of, and he was the on-field leader of, and he was arguably, actually I think it's unarguably our best player in 5 years of time in Toronto. I wonder if he will actually do that or not if he scores. And I think, of course, we'll have to see, but I'm really interested in hearing what you guys think about that, and I'd love to hear, I'd love to read your comments below in the comment section. So that's it. Epic fail, Rogers Sportsnet. Well done to TFC for winning qualification to the Champions League. Let's hope the TFC front office takes a lesson from the last game here and is a little more progressive on price. And let's start looking forward, of course, to the second half of the season, starting in earnest with a critical away game this Saturday evening in DC versus Dwayne De Rosario and DC United. Thanks again very much for watching, and you folks have yourselves a wonderful day. Cheers.